G'day, it's Tony from GME. In this video, we're going to cover the MT605G EPIRB, specifically how to get it set up and how to perform a self-test. Now, maybe you've owned an EPIRB before, but there's a couple of little steps you can take when you first buy an EPIRB to make sure that if you do need to activate it, it's there and it's ready to go when you need it. So when you buy an EPIRB from GME, like the MT605G, obviously you get the EPIRB and you get the mounting bracket. Now the first thing to do with any emergency beacon, once you purchase it, is head to beacons.amsa.gov.au and register your beacon. This helps in the event of an emergency because AMSA, once receiving the signal from the beacon, will be able to link your registration with the beacon that's transmitting the distress signal. They'll have all of your emergency contacts, and you can even upload things like the name of your boat, the type of boat you're in, or in the case of a PLB, the vehicle that you're traveling in. You can change those details before each trip if you so wish, or if you're using a different vehicle. So don't forget to register your beacon. It's a really simple online process, and you need to update that registration every 2 years. AMSA will send you a text message reminder. You simply log in, put the details of your beacon in, and re-register it every 2 years. One of the other really important things when it comes to an EPIRB in the box is this, which is the activation placard. Now, this might seem really obvious. You might know how to operate your beacon, but think about being out on your boat with someone who maybe isn't so familiar with an EPIRB. Now, if you haven't told them how to activate the beacon and you get injured or worse, fall overboard, it's great that everyone on board can have a look at this placard and see exactly how to activate the beacon in the event of an emergency. Now the placard has got some really good 3M adhesive on the back. You simply peel off the backing, stick it right next to the EPIRB on your boat, and anyone can look at this and understand exactly how to activate the beacon in an emergency. Now, one of the other really important things when it comes to your EPIRB is to regularly conduct self-tests. This is basically a way of checking that the beacon is transmitting as required, and it's a super simple process, particularly with the brand new MT605G. So on the top of the beacon, you'll see there's a green button marked T, which is your test button. Now there's two tests that you can perform. One's your general self-test, and the other one is your GPS acquisition test. Now in this video, we're just going to cover the general self-test procedure, and then we'll do a separate video for the GPS acquisition test, because it's a little bit more of an involved process. With the general self-test, we recommend that you test the beacon every month, so 12 times a year. You can test it up to twice a month with a total of 24 self-tests per year for the life of the beacon, but we don't recommend that you exceed that because, of course, you are using a little bit of battery life every time you do one of these self-tests. Now, the self-test procedure itself is quite simple, but it's really important to ensure that you remove the beacon from the bracket before conducting the self-test. So in the case of the MT605G, you undo his little seat belt here, pull that off, push the clip down at the bottom. This is a lot easier when it's actually mounted in a boat, and remove the beacon from the bracket. Now on the top of the beacon, as I said, there's a small green button marked T for test. The MT605G allows you to test the beacon without having to lift the switch on the top where your actual activation button is, which is bright red, which is quite handy. So, in order to perform the self-test, you need to be able to see the two lights on the side of the beacon, because they're the ones that are going to tell you if the beacon is tested correctly. It's quite simple. Push and release the T button, the beacon will flash a light, and then it will emit a series of lights and beeps to confirm the test is progressing as it's intended. Now, this is all on page 15 of your instruction manual, so I don't expect you to remember all of this because I find it quite hard to remember myself. But quite simply, what you're looking for is when you push the test button, the beacon will flash the strobe light once. It will then flash the green strobe twice with two short beeps, followed by a long green flash of the strobe, accompanied by a long beep. If the beacon follows that procedure, that means that it's tested the 121.5 MHz frequency emission, the 406 MHz frequency emission, and the test has come back clean. So we'll do that now. Now there are a couple of other light flash and beep sequences that you may hear the beacon make, and if that's the case, they mean certain things dependent on what this beacon has experienced in its lifetime. If, when you commence the self-test procedure, there's a long beep accompanied by a long red flash of the strobe, it indicates that the beacon is undergoing a self-test. However, the beacon has previously been activated. If that's the case, contact GME 1300 463 463 in Australia, or head to the website if you're overseas and you can find out the information on how to contact our service team. That is very important because if the beacon has previously been activated, it means that it may not have sufficient battery life to operate for the 48 hours continuously that it needs to in the event of an emergency. Now, the other sequence that you may see, but hopefully not, when commencing the self-test procedure, both the green and red strobes will flash simultaneously 3 times, accompanied by 3 sharp beeps. This indicates that the beacon has detected that it does not have sufficient battery capacity to operate for 48 hours continuously upon activation. If that's the case, the beacon requires a new battery. So once again, contact the GME service team and they'll help you out with the procedure to ensure that your EPIRB is ready to go when you need it. Now, as always, if you require any more information, head to gme.net.au. Drop a comment below if you've got a question that you think we can answer easily, and otherwise, I hope to see you out on the water sometime.